building is Korong. This is the function hall. Okay, so your presentation is on. I'll show you something quickly. I'm just going to put his presentation up. If you want a laser pointer, you click here and you get a laser pointer and you can point to the person so they see it on the screens. It's just trying to get a laser pointer. And if you want a pen to underline this guy's name, you can also do that.
Thank you very much for that. It's very handy.
Yeah. But you need to take it. And if you want to zoom, you say you want to zoom to that part, we'll zoom to that main part. Okay.
Thank you. And also, so this is the...
this card. Yeah, so when you're in there, you will use that to move.
Thank you very much. So this is pretty much the background of how I'm going to be co-presenting.
So
and also the little tips that you have.
Oh, okay. I'll quickly show you also. So if you want a laser pointer, there is a laser pointer here, but you're going to point to one of the screens. If you click here, select that laser pointer, you point on all the screens at the same time. Yeah. I'm just giving you some tips on how to.
How are you thinking about?
No, they're going to present.
Oh, but we need to start now.
Yeah, okay, when you're ready.
Some 30 minutes to present
Yeah.
right after. So you guys can go into it.
Yeah.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you.
Good morning. 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 Oh, it's not loud enough. I know it's just a handful, but good morning. Are we all awake from yesterday's fun? Did you have fun? Yeah? I did, hey? I did, and I wouldn't mind to do it again. So, today is the final day of our conference, and I believe you had fun. I can see it. I mean, when I look at you, I can just see it. Hey, I can see it. And when you go back, you must tell them how we rocked this conference at Unisa. Huh? Only few are going to say that. I think the majority are going to go to Maravastad. Remember the Maravastad story? Yes, the Maravastad story. I have few announcements. May all the Unisa organizing team, just before tea, gather outside at the entrance to take a picture for our internal communication. Can you just relay the message to all the organizing team? And the next one is lunch will not be served in that marquee. Now I know the term, marquee. It will be served in the foyer, you know, where by the sponsors, right, Val? Yes. And it's going to be a takeaway lunch. It's not going to be like we've been having. So on that note, I was just reflecting on yesterday's talk about correspondence. So how many of you have corresponded through Unisa or through whatever? Oh yeah, I have my age groups here, I see. So, as I was thinking about it, I grew up on a farm, as in a plus, near a village, plus. So my mom used to come with these brown envelopes. They were written Unisa, but I didn't know what she was doing. So she would say to us, I'm corresponding. I said, but what is this corresponding? What is my mom doing? So every time she would put things in the envelope, go to the post office and post this thing. Then it came back with results. And I said, but how did it happen that she posted in this, it used to be red boxes, red post office boxes. She posted in it, but somebody in that box is opening this envelope and giving my mom the results. So that is introducing our keynote speaker today. His topic is about smart classroom now and beyond. So I was thinking this red box was the classroom for my mom. But I was asking myself, whoever is marking this thing that is in the envelope, how are they fitting in that box? Who comes and takes it out, or somebody's sitting there and I started believing the story of a tokoloshi. The tokoloshi story? So there must be a tokoloshi in that box. Because tokoloshi works at night, right? While I'm sleeping, somebody's marking my mother's assignments. But anyway, I think our keynote speaker is going to explain to us how this tokoloshi is now being improved. And the Maraba Start story, everything fits in together. It really fits in together. But anyway, our keynote speaker is a senior manager who's responsible for the office of the CIO at Wits University. Some of his responsibilities covers customer services, information security, IT risks and audit. This is a word that I named it after the fourth industrial revolution term. I'm going to say it very slowly. Digitalization team. He's also looking after that team. Asset management, ICT finance, and governance. Academically, he holds information system and business finance degree. He's a vet someone. He's very loyal to vets, from vets. He's got a postgrad degree, a diploma in management from vets. And currently he's studying master's degree in digital business at vets. So he's a very loyal vets alumni. Please welcome Mr. Tato Lihuzo from vets.
So, good morning, colleagues. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Of course, yesterday was a great night, and I can tell by some people's faces. But yesterday I was also worried about some people making some moves, because I was looking at the age and thinking, the bones at this time, should you do something wrong, repairing of those, it's not really going to go well. But with that, let me get into Smart Classroom Now and Beyond. So that is the agenda or the discussion points that I'll be taking you through for today. But let me tell you what we have at WITS today. So our smart classroom is interesting in that when a student walks into the smart classroom, based on facial recognition and their smart student card, then they are automatically registered on the e-register. For some students who do not have devices, within the smart classroom itself, you find that they can do a device checkout. That would be a laptop or a tablet, so we've catered for that. Now, based on the lecturer walking into the smart classroom, again, based on facial recognition, them having their smart staff card, and the timetable, what starts to happen is the classroom says, the magic, let it happen. Countdown begins, and there you go, recording happens. And that is our smart classroom, as you can see, with some beautiful furniture that's movable, configurable, and so forth. And at the same time, there are students who are streaming into the smart classroom. They too are automatically registered for the attendance register, and they can interact with the lecturer and so forth from wherever they are. The ability of the smart classroom is that it gives the lecturer an in-quiz option, whereby students who perhaps, or rather the configuration of the in-classroom quiz, if it's found that students, 60% of them are not doing well, then the lecturer gets an immediate activation via email to say, look, this content that you're covering, the students did not understand. So the lecturer is able to right there and then recover that topic. And this feeds into our system that's called student at risk, to say this student needs early intervention right now, based on the marks, based on even the in-classroom quizzes that we're getting from them. And obviously when the classroom is over, you will remember that there are some students who had checked out some devices that do not belong to them, but this is Johannesburg, and we have to remind them that as they walk out of the room that, hey, you've not checked the device back in, so an email is sent to them, and we don't worry too much. If they don't bring it back, we just charge it to the student's account, because that is part of them signing up for such a thing. And obviously, when the recording is done, it goes to the correct lecture place within Sakai, and it's saved for ubiquitous access by students later on. So that is our smart classroom right now. I could already see when I was telling you about our smart classroom, people were shaking their heads. Some others, you could tell they're excited. But I did term this conversation or this presentation Smart Classroom Now and Beyond. This is the beyond part, okay? So we are not there yet, okay, colleagues? This is the beyond part. But let's look at what does WITS actually have right now that is close to the smart classroom that we're actually going for.
You don't even have to struggle with this. It's just so fun, so comfortable, the equipment, wow. And Wi-Fi, it really helps. One of the big goals of the ESO and the Eastern Demand team is to train lecturers and support lecturers in how to create online content, how to deliver blended learning, and how to change the curriculum design. So we run quite a lot of workshops, and faculty that we're involved in, and we do have plans to open them up further as well as we get more proficient in what it is that we're training.
All right, colleagues, so you could see that I'm not absolutely lying. There are some components that we have in the smart classroom. That was the E-zone, and for those who are wanting to know more, obviously you can talk to me after that, and I can connect you with Dr. Paula Barnard-Ashton, who was the person you saw in that clip. But let's ask, why a smart classroom? Okay? So firstly, we want to cater for the customer's needs. Our CIO usually goes out and asks the students themselves, what is it that you actually want? And the students have said, we don't want to come to class. That is what they've said, right? We want to prepare the students for the digital workplace, because what we are finding is that a lot of times students are coming out with their graduates, or rather with their diplomas and degrees, but they are not ready to hit the ground running. They have to be retrained when they get to work. Fees Must Fall was really a blessing in disguise for some of us, because for the first time, academics turned to IT to say, because we cannot deliver the way we usually do, what do we do IT? So for us, it was a blessing in disguise. Obviously, we know there are resource constraints, and I think a lot of the speakers of past spoke about it. Of course, all of us have got enrollment limitations. I know that WITS, we are proud that we can take about 6,000 first-year students, but bring such a thing onto the table, you find you now determine what the number is. Traveling costs. I mean, I don't know, you guys, do you enjoy coming to work, being in traffic, taxi drivers swearing at you? I don't know, maybe you do, but I don't, certainly not. Accommodation challenges. We remember that most of the students sometimes come from faraway places, KZN and so forth, but the fact that they have to make it here is another thing we're trying to eradicate. Think about the security challenges that comes with having so many students on campus. And again, there's a reduction in utility spend. So this is some of the reasons why the smart classroom was actually brought into place. Now, I heard a lot of the speakers touch on customer centricity, and they came up as a theme. And one of the things then that was really shining was that we need to have some customer-focused leadership. And the most important thing for me that was resonating was we need to understand the customer, right? And even when you look at the classic definitions that are out there of why actually businesses exist, even a university, they speak about, for instance, the business process definition says, it's the integration between the organization's goals and objectives with the customer's expectations and needs. When you look at even the classic definition of why companies exist is that you need to cater for the customer's needs in exchange, obviously, for the patronage of money. When you look at the marketing one, it says you need to know and understand the customer so that the product itself can sell itself, right? Now, with that said, I sometimes realize that perhaps we as universities don't think like businesses, and that's a problem. And how do I know this? Every time IT, people who can change things, people who now need to lead the industry that we're in, you find when you introduce something new, especially to our academics, and I must say this because I know I'm on tape, academics, we love you, okay? We really do. We are believing in you and we want to help you. But these are some of the things that they will say when you bring something new. This is how we've always done things, right? I mean, I don't know, I don't think VETS is unique in this, or are we? Have some of you heard this? Okay, so it looks like we're in the right place with the right people. Some will say this is not corporate, is it not? And then when you ask them, who is the customer? What do they say? Not the students. We are the ones who make them. They are products. Have you heard that, guys? Okay. And they'll always say, this university will stand, as it always has in the past. And you know, I needed to use a baritone voice to kind of age myself, but I notice I'm not Barry White at this point, right? And the most famous one I've heard everywhere, and this is for WITS, may not apply for Unisa, they say this is a traditional contact university. I mean, I'm seeing someone laugh on the left there because it resonates with them. Now, can I ask the group here, who is the primary stakeholder? Anybody? Okay. Wow, I'm with the right team. Now, I usually don't ask academics that question anymore. Okay, because I found out there's a big problem. Instantly, you just, yeah, let me not even go there. I'm being taped. But let's go into some reality checks. I'm sure you know of Airbnb, right? I'm sure you know of Uber. Some of you have come through here. But let me give an example of what the digitalization, which the smart classroom plays part of, happened. So I was at the taxi rank, and there was Mkhize speaking to the taxi marshals, taxi owners, and so forth. And he said, guys, I'm looking at the numbers. There's a problem. We are losing customers. And what was their classical response? Okay, who's stealing our customers? Right? And they said, Uber. They said, Uber. Uber, let's go kill him now. And Mkhize said, well, Uber is not a person. They said, wow, not a problem. Where are the offices, as they say? And they said, well, they don't have offices currently. Okay, not a problem. Okay, where's their fleet? Let's go ban it. Well, they don't have a fleet. And they thought, wow. And what had happened? You see, the game in which we're playing in now has changed. They relied on protecting their roots with violence. They knew you had to have stock, you had to have cars, you had to have a fleet and so forth. But all of a sudden, the rules of the game have changed where you don't need all of that for you to stand. It's the same with universities. I know when we compete, we talk about our prestige, we talk about the buildings we have, we talk about the experts in the rooms that we have. You know what? People who are going to come and disrupt us don't need none of those things, because it has happened with Airbnb. It has happened in Uber, Facebook, Alibaba, and there are many other platform groups that are starting to disrupt a lot of things. Let's look at another reality check. So, okay, the students have come to the university, they've got their degrees, great. They should be getting their jobs as they were promised, but they're not. I mean, just coming this morning, I saw a couple of these. I don't know how many of you will have also noticed that there were students saying, I've got a degree, it's in my bag with my CV, please, I need a job. And the question I ask then is, are we losing our relevance as a university? When I listened to the speakers of past, they all spoke about relevant. You know, but when you start seeing these graduates at the robots asking for jobs, plus looking at the newspaper titles, when you look at Ernst & Young, they say they don't care anymore about university degrees. That is not a criteria anymore. And more companies are adopting this. I mean, even Apple and IMB, Google, they have now hit our shores. They're saying the same things. And what we really have to ask ourselves is, as a higher education institution, are we relevant or not? Here's another fact. When you look at the EDXs, the universities and so forth, they are coming in, partnering up with the universities. But these are the guys we may likely find ourselves competing against. Because right now you can go and have a MOOC, which is for free, and nothing can beat free. And the only thing you gotta pay for is then the badge or the certificate. And the thing is, whatever they are providing is actually industry related. It is very specific, meaning that person who's got that degree, or rather that certificate, can go and work for a company because they can say, I've got this Microsoft certificate, I can do this thing. So the question is, are we still being relevant? Because another thing that came to mind when I spoke to some people is that the content that the universities are giving is the same as 20 years ago, which means they have not gone out to industry to ask, what we're teaching, is it still relevant or not? And of course, we heard about the jobs that are not even yet in existence and the jobs that are going to disappear. But if our content is still the same, if our mindset is still the same, one thing that is that's really going to happen is that these buildings are going to become museums, where we'll be bringing our children saying, can you see this place? Magnificent. They used to be what was called students. They used to be called what was lecturers. But as you have your military museums, we now have got higher education institution museums. So we need to really, really wake up and start understanding, what does the custom want? Let me move on before I get shot. I can see some faces. So we talked about the primary stakeholders, and we all agreed. These are the students. When you look at the generational chart, you start to see the importance of this, because I know sometimes we've seen it, some people have not. But let's look at some of these characteristics. And I'm going to ask you to do something. And please follow my instructions very carefully, because if you don't, we may have to call ambulances. Can you just look at the person to your left and to the right quickly? Okay? But don't say anything. And try and see where do they fit into this chart. Don't say anything. Don't smile, don't do anything. I beg you. Okay? So when you look at the maturists, when you look at the baby boomers, their signature product was the automobile. That's what they used to call it. It wasn't a car back then, right? It was an automobile. And the television. That was their signature product. Now let's look at their communication preference, face to face. Now this made me understand, why is this a traditional contact university? Guess what? The people who are teaching right now are around those ages. And that's what they believe in. But the customer today is far removed from this reality. In fact, I saw a clip of youngsters being given this telephone, and they asked, what is this thing? And they tried to use it, and they said, but how do you dial numbers? I mean, they could see it goes around, but they couldn't fathom what this thing was. Now, let's look at the generation that's entering universities right now, known as Generation X, Generation Y, in the American term known as Generation Z. If you look at their signature products, obviously it's the machines, it's the cell phones, but look at their communication preference. Emails and SMS started being a standard, but now online and mobile. Now you start to realize there's a gap between our customers right now and what we're actually doing. So our business model does not fit this. There's a gap. When you look at Generation Z, FaceTime is what they want. You will see them usually in a group, together speaking, but they're also speaking to their other friends on the cell phone at the same time. Something some of you cannot fathom, but I'll leave it at that. I won't go further, okay? Going back to this, when you look at the signature products here of the Generation Z, Google Glass, nano computing, 3D printing, driverless cars. I know it's level 1 now, which means you cannot sleep, but we're getting there while it's driving. AI is what we spoke about, Internet of Things, machine learning. This is where they are. This is what we need to be supplying. Now, if you look at the Generation Alpha, somebody spoke about the 2030 student, right? And that whatever we do today must actually cater for that next generation. We should not be producing things that we think will be for the next generation. We need to ask them. But if you're looking at the Generation Alpha, which is also known as the I generation, which is actually the children of the Generation Z, they are born with IT. We've heard that. In fact, when the baby is being delivered, they come out with a cell phone. And they actually make a call, and they say, I've arrived. And the only thing we then do is to say, is it an Apple phone or an Android phone? That's all we do, right? But that's what's happening right now. When you look at the attitude towards career, we don't know. Remember, it was said, the jobs that are coming, we don't even know what they may even look like, right? But when you look at their signature products, look at this, autonomous driving level 4. This means I would have come to Unisa, I would have slept in the car would have said, sir, you've arrived, right? So I'm waiting for that time, it's coming. When you look at the smart dust, I mean, does anybody here know what smart dust is? Anybody? Okay, no one knows what smart dust is, but it's there, okay? And don't ask me what it is. But look at this, 4D printing. Yes, we're talking about 3D printing, which is available right now, and we've heard that we can print our body parts. You've heard about that, right? But I'm hoping that none of us will go that route, because I know with a lot of people not happy about body parts, and you can print it at home. You can imagine every time I see my colleagues, like, what did you do to your nose? What did you do to your ears, your lips? What's happening every single day? So I'm hoping we will not get there. But things are becoming cheaper. But 4D printing, can we even imagine what 4D printing is, right? I mean, look at this, volumetric display. So some of you are, I hope, watch CSI. Anybody, people? Do you know CSI? Sure, thank God. Because I started to think maybe these guys are, let's not go there. But 4D printing, volumetric displays. When you watch CSI, a lot of times you'll see them hold a device or a cell phone, and it starts making holograms. And you can talk and see things in the air and look at them and turn it. You've seen that. So that's what's going to be happening, right? But not only that, look at their communication preference. AR. VR, right? And the 6 degrees of freedom is coming, whereby you'll be able to fully immerse your body. I'm sure some of you have watched Ready Player One. Anybody? So we've got some people, it's a few people, but kudos to you guys, right? When you watch that movie, you start to realize that people can insert themselves in this room fully dressed with everything. And I've seen a clip as well whereby this person gets up ready to go to church, puts up their VR, they select what clothes they want, they select which kind of choir they need, they select what type of preacher they want, and there, they have gone to church, done. And when they're done, they put it aside and they sleep. So these things are coming along, and we need to prepare ourselves for such things, right? And even when you look at the preference when making financial decisions, that's something that we are still to understand. So when you understand your customer, it's then that you start to bring things that are relevant to them. Because should you think about bringing things that are far back, such as let's do face-to-face, then you must know you're going to lose them. Okay. So smart classroom right now. At the moment, we have an RFQ going on. Somebody has been selected. I won't mention who they are, because I did see some service providers who are in the room. Unfortunately, they didn't get the deal. So I will not put some salt into it. I'll just keep quiet and say better luck next time. But when you look at the basic smart classroom we're looking into now, we just want to record, stream, people be able to watch on demand, analytics, in-class quizzes, digital boards, bring your own devices, and there's more. But obviously, as time moves along, we want to get into facial recognition and AI. I know at VETS at the moment, there is a program whereby it can look at the students and tell you who's bored, who's not engaged. So we want those things fully immersed into our smart classroom to say, you know what, lecturer, the people are not getting you, or you are just plain boring. Can you find ways to zhuzh up what you deliver, right? So that's coming. And obviously the automatic attendance register, and we want to get to a place where it will be advanced. And at this point, we don't want to put too much, because technology is changing at such a pace that if you put anything there today, you'll find that it doesn't actually matter going forward. And to make an example, we used to have what we called newspapers. I don't know if I should ask who still reads newspapers. It's fine, guys, don't answer that, right? But the problem with newspapers today, given digitalization, is that by the time the paper is printed, it's history to us, because we knew it as it happened, right? And that's what technology does. It takes industries out, and the same thing, that's why we didn't put anything. We knew that there will be some other technology to include in this, hence we just left it at that. So there are some things that we are thinking about as we go along this journey, which could also help you guys. So the good thing that we had on this project is that the senior management support was there. The person actually driving it, although he was a DVC academic at the time, is actually the vice president, and he believes in technology, and this is a great plus for us, right? And also what we did, we ensured to include as many stakeholders as possible, but the main one being the SRC, which then represents the students. Because remember, this smart classroom is not for us. In fact, even when you look into this room, I don't know how many Generation Zs we've got in this room. We've got everybody else but the most important people in the room. And a lot of times, when we are developing solutions, you find we are missing the key people, those stakeholders, right? So CLTD was there, which is our Center for Learning, Teaching and Development, which also is helping, and many other interested stakeholders. And I think based on having these stakeholders, we were able to then understand the needs of students who don't have devices. How do we actually cater for them? The other thing we need to do is we need to really rethink customer centrism, put them back in the middle and ask them questions. We also need to really reposition IT as a strategic partner rather than just being operational. And the good thing about our VP himself has said, we understand you've got operation, but we also know you guys are actually strategic, and in decision making we'll be calling you to say, this is what we want to do. What do we do with technology to leverage and make sure that we move things ahead? The business model definitely has to change. As I've discussed, we know the face-to-face, we understood the ages, we understand the gaps, but the business model will have to change. Perhaps we may have to go to platforms where we no longer have to come to school and so forth, but obviously there's a lot of conversation that needs to begin there. The policies will also have to change. At the moment, I know every university has got what they call DP, due performance, where a student must come to class in order to then qualify to write exams. But as soon as you bring digital, smart classroom, and so forth, how does the policy then cater for such things? We also know currently there's challenges in that students may not want to be recorded. So right now we just focus on the lecturer themselves, and those things are being worked out. But these are conversations that we should start having. Infrastructure requirements. Luckily at WITS, we were in a place where our network is being refreshed, therefore also helping us to have such things. We're also aware that there is going to be a digital divide, meaning those who have never touched a laptop and so forth, as we go into the 4IR, more people are going to be lost. But these are conversations, again, we need to start having to say the STEM education, even at high school, primary, and there's some even primary schools now that are actually implementing the use of technology in the classes. Spark schools and so forth, they've understood that to move us forward, these are the kind of things that you need. So, and that word digital apartheid, that comes from Dr. Paula Bernard Ashton, so it's not mine, she coined it. So those are the things we understand, and that's why the loaning of the devices within the class, we've made that possible. Obviously, the cost to connect. This is now where we have to go and talk to the telcos like we did when there were strikes at the universities, where they zero-rated the URLs to the class, for the students. This obviously is something we need to have a conversation with them to say, if we need our students to connect from anywhere, zero-rate all these things, and let's talk about how to then recoup. But that's very important, it's key. And obviously the computer and digital literacy is something we definitely need to look at. The past speakers spoke about it, so I won't touch much. And obviously the biggest thing is going to have to be the mindset change, because I do understand one of the things that was transpiring from our conversations was that the lecturers were feeling like they're going to be left out when this digital comes. That once they're recorded and that is available to everybody, do they call me back next year or not? You know, but another thing that came up, which they didn't really discuss, was that yes, you are as good as you are in your class with just your students. Now the world is watching you. Are you really that good or not? But I won't go further into that. So those are the type of things we need to take cognizance of to help them move along with us. And another thing about mindset change, those who cannot change their minds, we have to allow them to exit, okay? And that's a reality, because if you do not allow them to exit at that point in time, we will all be exiting because the universities will be closing. So rather let that one or two individuals leave and those who can take on this thing to come on board. And obviously the culture change, which is the biggest one, but will have to be tackled. And obviously the causes will have to be redesigned, you know, for this kind of technology, and it must be relevant to the industry. And what I'm seeing, because of the fast-paced change of technology itself, we're gonna have to do this yearly, this renewal. And of course, one has to watch that although we are going to the 4D or 4IR, we need to keep cognizance of the pace in which you go. And I'll leave you with this last slide to talk more to that. Thank you. That was my presentation.
Thank you very much. Oh yeah, Emma. So I think I'll take it home, that Emma. I can relate. So I like the last part, which I'm going to execute when I get home. So I've been told that I should not be writing things in my notebook. It's there in my bag. So please share this, because I want to really play it at home. So they must trend very carefully. Thank you very much. And this is
Thank you so much.
enough our appreciation. Any questions from the floor? We still have 5 minutes. We can take questions. So we all know the smart classroom. We are okay with it, or we are scared. Because I can sense that we are very scared. So I think artificial intelligence is here in many ways. And I've just learned a new term. I was saying the fourth industrial revolution is 4IR. So no more this long terms. So with that note, I think we can break for coffee and tea outside. The Unisa organizing team, please assemble at the entrance of Khorong for a group picture that we can use in our internal communications. See you after the morning tea.
taken away. I don't need this. Do I need that? Yeah, okay. All right. So then I'll say, blah, 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 blah. Thank you, blah, 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 blah. We're now going to hand out the certificates per university. As we've had 52 presentations, we would take too long if we handed them out individually. Okay, and then I'm saying, okay, will VUT please come up and receive their certificates? And then VUT, and then I hand it to you.
So I stand right here, you hand the stack, the stack to me.
Then then we must move these tables. Okay. Then you go back and they will come to the stage, or however they do it, and you hand, and then you stand here and have a photo taken, and then they go out. Then people will be clapping, and then they go and sit, and then the next person will say, and now I'd like to Northwest, or whatever the case may be. Okay.
I'll just add them to the first person.
Yeah, whoever.
Okay.
Okay. So these tables then must be moved. We can move them just to the back here. No, don't need to. Oh, sure.
Do you think we can move that here?
Just move it at the back.
Yeah, but I'm going to move the presenters keeps. Okay. So then we'll use these tables.
Oh, okay.
Hey.
Presenters, gifts. Oh, yes, of course. Okay.
Okay, no, that's fine. So
How
you
many?
do
How many? What is the gift again?
the mug.
Okay. Okay. Can we not maybe put the table over there with all the gifts and say, each presenter please collect?
Or we can get Cindy to stand there and hand the gift as they walk off the
Yes, yes. Let's do that.
That's going to be better. I
Yeah,
think.
let's do that.
Otherwise, it's too much for us. And then, yeah. So we can say this back here at the end. Can't we move these chairs instead?
I did also have to move that.
Because we obviously don't want to move this.
No, we want to actually move this in so that we can have this at the back of the photographs.
Oh, it's not back here. And then the table I'm going to move to the back.
Yeah. What does it say? Welcome to that.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to just change it.
Welcome to like 2019 or something. 40 something for today. I'm not doing the other.
Is it in a gift bag?
Yeah, it's in a gift
Okay.
bag. This one is there.
But we don't want to be in front of the screen though. We'll flip that
at my age, I can have financial issues.